In this video, we're going to get set up for progressive loading the all-new 22 ARC cartridge. I'll start with a brief overview of 22 ARC. We'll talk about my 22 ARC bolt action build, see what's included with the Dillon XL-750 750 quick change kit, get set up for loading 22 ARC, and load some ammo. Gavin here from ultimatereloader.com. 22 ARC is the brand new cartridge from Hornady. It's only been out for months. We've already completed a bolt action build. This is an exciting new cartridge, and I'll tell you why. 6 ARC has made a major impact in this sort of AR-15 world because it brings larger caliber performance to the AR-15 platform, but it's built around a 6mm bullet. 22 ARC does have slightly different case geometry, but it brings that same performance potential of the 6 ARC into the 22 caliber domain. And this is awesome because it's going to have different recoil characteristics. It's going to involve higher velocities, and I think this is an outstanding varminting cartridge. A lot of folks are going to be focused on the AR-15 platform for the 22 ARC. We decided to start with a bolt action build. This is essentially the rifle we had built as a 6 ARC. So we've got the same bolt face there, but we spun up a new barrel. We've got an entire video on the rifle build for 22 ARC, and it has been absolutely awesome. We did some load development with Hornady's all new ELD-VT bullets. These are match bullets that are also great for hunting applications like varminting. This 62 grain ELD-VT bullet is about 1/3 MOA in this particular rifle, and we saw standard deviations down in the 0.7 to 1.6 foot per second range with Hodgdon's Stayball match powder. Now we're talking. This is a temperature stable powder. It's going to meter great in a progressive, and we've got a tack driver load. So we're going to take what we've been doing on the single stage press, and we're going to move that over to this Dillon XL-750. Okay, so here's the parts that we're going to use. We've also got dies over there for 22 ARC from Hornady, but the quick change kit, I haven't shown this kit here on the channel, so I think this will be cool to see what you get if you order one of these. Got a powder bar, label, powder measure, tool head, and stand. How cool is that? I like that. Okay. So, get this stuff out here. What's nice about this set is that you can pretty much just take it off the press, and with the stand, it's going to be sitting right there ready for you the next time you go to use it. And looks like we've got the small bar in the powder measure here, and we've got the large bar. So to have both, that is super awesome. Okay, so there's the top of the tool head. This is the quick change kit. Let's see if there's anything else in there. That's just the instructions for the powder measure assembly. Okay. Then we've got the caliber conversion kit, and this works for the 750 and 650, just like this guy here. And let's see what's in there. One thing where Dillon stands above the rest is the parts that you get for the case feeder. You've got this case drop adapter, which goes right here. We've got our funnel. I'm going to have to find a 22 caliber funnel because that's a 6mm. We originally were going to do this story as 6 ARC on the XL-750. But having gotten my 22 ARC build done, I thought, okay, let's go with the new cool stuff that you guys probably want to see. Okay, so this is the drop adapter that goes underneath. And then on the little rocker block, we've got this little insert, the case rim guide. So when the case drops, it rides in this guide so that it can't fall off the plank, as it were. It walks the plank into the press. And that's another advantage that Dillon has, is you don't get cases falling on the floor because everything held completely secure. Love that. So the buttons are the station buttons that keep the cases retained. We've got the shell plate as well, which is going to work. This one says 6 arc right on it. That's interesting. It should also work for 7.62 by 39, 6.5 Grendel, and 22 arc, which all share that 441 case rim. So this is the caliber conversion kit and the quick change kit. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to get everything torn down off the press so that we can put these parts back on. Okay, so I already swapped over to the large powder bar. You can see here the small powder bar. It's basically just a matter of putting an Allen key in one side and then using a closed end wrench. You loosen things a little bit so that you can pry these plates away, and there's a little nylon block there. Slide it out, slide the new one in, and then tighten things down, and then just make sure that things smoothly actuate. So that's no big deal. This will give us the capacity that we need for the rifle cartridge that we're loading, which is the 22 arc. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get things torn down, get everything off the press, and then I'll walk you through the process of building it back up for 22 arc. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at with reassembling the press is the parts that come in the caliber conversion kit. This is the set of parts that came off the press that correspond to 45 ACP. Now it happens that this lower drop tube section and the plastic insert for the rocker block are the same. So I left the two from the 45 ACP on the press and moved the 6 arc caliber conversion kit parts over there. So I'm going to set that aside. We don't need to worry about those. The first thing I'm going to do is the little ramp piece. This is easy to forget, so I'm going to drop that in place. And then probably a good idea next to do the shell plate. So we'll just raise the ram each time to get the case inserter block out of the way. And then we put the bolt into the middle hole there, being careful to guide the ejector wire down into its hole, which is around the circumference of the subplate. And this is where we get into an adjustment that is pretty critical, and that is the shell plate tension, essentially. So what we want to do is tighten it all the way down and then back it off a little bit. And we just want to check to make sure that we can freely rotate. Once we see there it's starting to grab, loosen it. I like that right there. Now that setting is preserved with a small set screw on the side, and that's going to hit this central bolt and prevent it from rotating. Give that a double check on the snug there. Okay, now we can check to make sure that we like our indexing. That looks good. All right, then we have the drop tube adapter. We can put our drop tube back. We have arrows pointing down. Okay. Raise that just a little bit. Okay. We'll also need to swap out the case feed plate. All right, so I went and I found my small rifle case feed plate. What I like to do when I deal with the case feed bowl is to just unplug the power, detach the drop tube, and then just take the unit down. It looks like this is a brand new case feeder. I think I took the other one and used it on a different machine or something like that. Okay, so we drop that in. Now, if we get cases in here and it's turning, and then it stops, but the hub is turning, and we feel like, okay, we're going to move that a little bit, and it just needs a little bit more grab. We can tighten these screws very carefully. Be careful, because if you over tighten those and have a bad jam, you could burn out the motor. So just something to be aware of. Okay, case feed is done. So let's get the powder measure put together. The first thing we need to do is to put the tool head on the press. We're going to take our 2 pins, pin that in place. Now the powder measure goes in station number 2, and when I initially started this project, as I mentioned, we thought we were going to be doing 6 arc, but then we finished our 22 arc build, right? So we're going to take the 6 PPC labeled powder funnel and then put that aside and use this 223 powder funnel instead. I think that's going to have the appropriate height, and being a 22 cal case neck, that should work great. Guess we will find out. And what I want to do is I want to be able to spin this all the way around while we're setting the height. It's just going to make it a little bit easier to do. So I'm going to kind of get this clamped, and then if we need to, we'll take off that drop tube. Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and omit that for the time being. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a good, fast way to dial in that height super quick. So we're over here in station number 2, and what we want to see is, I'm going to get that return rod in place, is we want to see the bar articulate and move, and then basically get very, very close to the end, or slightly bottom out, but we don't want it to bottom out with much force. So let's see where we're at here. Okay, we're just moving just slightly there. I just realized we're going to take the rod off because that's going to make this a lot faster to check. Just have to make sure that we do a manual reset on it, which is to pull this down like that. Okay, I think we have a plan here. So we'll go up, and we can even just spin this while we're at the top of the stroke there. I think we're getting there. Yep, I can feel it hit there. So I'm going to back off just a little bit. Let's see if we like that. My test for that is actuate and then press it. It looks like it goes a little bit further, so we're going to go ahead and give it that extra turn and see if we like that better. Okay. That's right, we have to bring this back manually. Okay. So with the additional turn down, let's see what happens now. Ooh, perfect. Yeah, there's just that very, very slight amount of play, which is what I want, so that the case mouth is not being smashed down. Now we can put the rod back in. We just pinch these together, put the rod through both, and we'll just double check to make sure that we are having a positive return here. So actuated, returned. Looks like we need a little bit more spring tension there. These are the things that you want to check and get right kind of from the get-go. What I want to see is, as this little spring is compressing, the rebound spring, I want to see a little bit of coil still so that we're not completely compressing that spring. That looks pretty good. So let's see how that works. All the way actuated, all the way retracted. Okay, that's perfect. That's the first stage of dial in for the powder measure. Next, we're going to add some powder and get our powder charge correct. Okay, so before I fill the powder reservoir with powder, we're going to lock in our lock ring. That will keep things from moving on. I'm looking at this return rod, and I just want to get that kind of centered up. A 1-inch wrench works great on these Dillon lock rings. And then we're going to tighten the clamp screws here. That all looks good. Okay. So we're using stay ball match. Looking at my load development notes, it looks like we have 29.5 is what we're going for. So really, really important. First, fill the powder measure. Step 1. Step 2, before you even take your hand off the powder jug, get your label. This is just handwritten stay ball match. We're going to put this, I had that upside down for you guys, sorry. Stay ball match. We're going to put that right on the measure so that we're staring at it as we're loading. This is going to prevent any mix-ups. And I'm going to leave the cap off because we're going to be dumping our powder back in. The way I like to do the run-up on the powder measure and to set the powder charge is to put a previously fired primed case or a new case that's primed. You just need a primer in place, whether it be a used primer or a new primer. We'll turn on our scale, let it zero out on the brass, and then when we check a charge, we put the brass back on the scale and it's going to tell us what the actual powder charge is. Okay, so let's see where this is at. Now this could overflow. Yep, I did not think that through as well as I could have. So we're going to get our 7/16 and we're going to take care of that. So when it comes to adjusting the powder charge, it's helpful for me to take a look at this actual bar. When we tighten this head on the end, it's going to pull the bar towards us, which is going to increase. So what we need to do is we need to loosen this to decrease the charge. Now we're just compressing the charge in there. Let's see what that does. Make sure we're still teared out 0 there. Okay. We didn't get much overflow there, just a little bit. Okay. And we're going to want to let this settle in with a few dispensings of powder so that things can kind of stabilize a bit. Ideally, you run 30 charges through there just to make sure everything gets up to steady state, to equilibrium, if you will. But for the first tests, I think we're probably good enough there, and then we will confirm what I like to call settle in with subsequent charges and recheck accordingly. Okay, we need to be at 29.5, we're at 24.5. So we go back to our tightening motion here. And we'll just keep doing this until we get the right charge. $29.5. Good to go. All right, time to set up our sizer deprimer and then our bullet seeder. So we've got this guy. I'm gonna advance this decapping pin down. All right about there. Brand new die. All right, I'm gonna cinch this down with the appropriate wrenches. These dies have what's called the zip lock spindle, so we just need to kind of get this in place. You don't have to tighten it very much because of that zip lock feature. Okay, this is going to go in station number 1. And to start things off, we're just going to put the ram to the very top, kind of tighten it down until we feel a little bit of cam over, and then we will see what our shoulder bump is. For precision bolt action scenarios, I'm typically running about 0.02 of an inch bump. Okay, that is just hitting. Now I'm going to advance it another, I don't know, quarter turn or so, something like that. This will give us a good starting point. Now, this is the same piece of brass once fired that we used to set the powder measure. I'm going to put a little bit of imperial case sizing wax on the outside here. And then we'll also hit the case neck on the inside as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will take our comparator and then we're going to go ahead and hit 0. Now, ideally, just a note, ideally we would decap this first. What we can do is we can check to see if we have any wobble. And this, I can feel that the primer doesn't have any cratering on it. It's not teetering around. But just know that you'll get better and more consistent results if you do that. So that comes back down to 0. Give the case a little bit of a spin, slight amount of force towards the case itself, just to make sure that we're getting a good initial reading. That's right, we need to drop this in. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and size it, deprime it. Heard that deprime, that's good. Station number 2 has the spring, so it makes it really easy to get the case out. Let's see what happened. -1. We could probably live with that, but I'm going to crank it down just a little bit more. Just a note that if you're loading for the AR, you're going to want to be more like 3, 3.5. -2 on the nose. So I'm going to call that sizer die setup good to go. So bullet seating die. Let's go ahead and put that in station number 4. That gives us nice access. And then if we wanted to, for the AR, we could put a crimp die in station number 5. So I'm going to back the seating plug off from the get-go, way off. And then we're going to put one of our previously loaded cartridges. That was from our single stage load workup exercise in there, and then crank the die down until either it hits the case mouth or it hits the shell holder. I've gotten really good concentricity results with these dies because they have this sliding collar design. Okay, so it looks like we're hitting right about there. So we'll go ahead and clamp the die down. And for preserving our setting, I'm just going to tighten the ring just a little bit. Now we can take the seating plug right there. We're going to go just a hair beyond to compress everything. Okay, like that. Now let's see what our overall length was on this particular round. Wipe the jaws. Come down to 0, 0 things out. So we were at 2.254. Now let's create a dummy cartridge, which we can keep in our loading components. Okay, so I put some bullets in the bullet tray. These are the 62 ELD-VTs. See where this is at. Once again, 2.254, I believe is what we had here. Yep. And we are at 2.2525. Okay, within thousandth and a half. That is plenty close for this because I'm not going off the lands yet. I haven't done that level of load development. These things have shot absolutely amazing. Okay, so the bullet seating die is done. I'm going to mark this as a dummy cartridge and then on to the next thing. So last caliber that we had going was 45 ACP. That was large primers. Now we're using small primers for the 22 ARC. That means we need to put our priming system together. So the first thing we do is to take our small primer drop tube, and that goes down, and what you want to do is rotate it until it kind of locks into place. You'll feel it fall just like that. Now we will hold that in place with the cap, which also has our low primer buzzer installed on it. Okay, so that's all a unit now. And the way this works is there's a couple thumb screws on the bottom of the primer stack assembly. We're going to take those off. And we should be able to put our primer slider on, put our plate back on, and then this is going to go onto the machine as a unit. Now we're going to put our thumb screws on finger tight. Okay, now our spring wire goes on. And before we put this in place, we need to make sure that our spring, the return spring, is in place. Okay, so there's that. Let's see how that's going to work. Okay, that looks good. Now, one final note is I left those thumb screws finger tight. We've got the primer cup up through the subplate and into the shell plate. This is going to align everything. Now we're going to do a final tighten on those thumb screws. double check we like how things are actuating. Okay, now we're ready to fill primers. So filled a primer tube with Federal 205 small rifle primers. We're going to drop these down in. One little trick I like to do is send the rod through just to make sure that everything is completely cleared. Okay, so that feels good. Flip our buzzer actuator over. Okay, so there's 100 primers, and that means all we need to do now is load cases and load ammo. Let's do this. Cases are loaded, time for some progressive loading. Get to station number 4, we're going to place a bullet each time. I cannot tell you how much faster this is than loading on the single stage. I think we're going to run out of brass pretty fast here. This is just smooth. Notice I'm taking a little pause at the top of the stroke there to let the powder fall. But this stay-ball match, it just drops almost instantly. No crunching or grinding. Love it. Awesome. I'll tell you what. That is satisfying. After just a couple minutes, we've got rounds coming off the press that look just amazing. These new Hornady 62 ELD-VTs, totally awesome. I'm really hoping we've got a couple thermal setups to get some coyote action going, but also just as a long-range precision cartridge. You know, in this story, we talked about progressive loading for this ammunition. You're definitely going to want to check out our 22 ARC complete rifle build. That was built on the same platform as the 6 ARC rifle that we did, basically just a barrel swap. We've got a story coming up here on the UD5 chassis that we ended up putting it in. Really, really good stuff. Here's what I'd like to know from you guys though, is what kind of precision cartridges are you bulk loading on your Dillon equipment, specifically the Dillon 650 or 750? It's hard to find fault with the 750, you know. Compared to the 650, there's a couple of really important improvements, including the priming system, going from the telephone dial to the primer slider. And 5 stations gets it done. And, you know, we could put a powder check in station number 3 here. That would be a great addition. So, we got more 22 ARC action coming up. I've got different bullets to try. We've got different SKUs of ammunition, 75 ELDM factory ammunition, 88 ELDM factory ammunition. If you do have something specific you'd like to see, please drop a comment and let's start that discussion. I'm having a ton of fun with 22 ARC, and I hope that you will too. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you want to learn lucrative gunsmithing like what I show here on the channel, including building custom rifles and Cerakote plus a whole bunch more, you're going to want to check out the Colorado School of Trades, schooloftrades.edu. Thanks again for watching.